Hey there everyone, it's here, the January 2024 Balance Dataslate. I know everyone's been waiting for it. I think today I'm just going to talk about the changes that affect only the Astra Militarum. So let's go through it. Without further ado, we get to the main one that all the Guard players have been waiting for. Changes to Voice of Command. So if you read this, it says, if your army faction is Astra Militarum, officer models with this ability can issue orders. The key change to that first line is it took out in your command phase. So that's important. Each officer's datasheet will specify how many orders it can issue and which units are eligible to receive those orders. Each time an officer model issues an order, select one of the orders below, then select one eligible friendly unit within 6 inches of that officer model to issue it to. Officer models can issue orders in your command phase and at the end of a phase in which they disembarked from a transport or were set up on the battlefield. Now this is a huge change to how orders work, because you're no longer locked to doing it in your command phase. Now, the main thing would be mechanized guards, so having your units be in a Chimera or a Taurus, or pretty much any, transport. This now allows you to disembark from the transport and still get an order. So, you can get that really good move off the board, then you can disembark, then you can get your take aim, what you're going to do. And I think it's going to be a great change. It makes a lot of people happy. But I think another key thing in this change is it no longer locks it to command phase. Because it does say command phase normally, but it just says at the end of a phase in which they disembark from a transport or were set up on the battlefield. Now something else you can do this with would be rapid ingress. So there's also been a little change to this, but basically it just says, you can set up at your opponent's movement phase. So like with the change to voice command, because you set them up and then at the end of the phase, you can now issue an order to a rapid ingress model. Which is pretty good. So you've got your, deep striking scions, you got your gaunts ghosts even if you wanted to. You got a lot of options to be able to use this on several different things. But I think my personal favorite would be the Hades breaching drill. Now this has deep strike key rule, so don't worry about that. But something it says is each time you set up this model on the battlefield using the deep strike ability, you can select one friendly Astra Militarum unit in strategic reserves. If you do, you set that model up on the unit on the battlefield as well. So you can deep strike the Hades breaching drill, and then you can basically grab a unit from strategic reserve that that doesn't have deep strike, and you can deep strike them. But because voice of command doesn't specify any specific phase, you can then at the end of that phase use that pseudo deep struck infantry unit and give them an order from whatever attached unit they might have, which is pretty good. I know a lot of people don't really think the Hades breach drill's worth it, but I think it could be pretty good now. Another change in the rules that might affect this would be the counters having made a normal move. This is only really to do with if you're running mechanized guard and you got those like Tyranids or whatever units, you set up your units on the field and they're like, haha, run away, or whatever they're gonna do. This just makes it so they can't really do that as much. So if anything, it just makes guard a bit stronger. From this point, I'm just going to go into some of the other changes. These aren't really to do with transports or voice command, but they're key to the guard. There are other changes in the rules, but they're just changes that affect everyone. I think some of these changes be specific to the guard and how it changes our gameplay. So the first one is abilities with the same name. Abilities with the same name can affect multiple units, but if such an ability applies to a name condition, that cannot be once at any given time. So it's pretty easy to read. So if it says benefit of cover, obviously benefit of cover doesn't work. But if it says suppress, doesn't work. But a good use for this would be our Fields of Fire ability. You use one unit, drop Fields of Fire on someone, then use Ursa the Creed, do it again. That's a -2 AP right there. And I don't know. This doesn't specifically say stratagems, but I think the key takeaway is that you can affect the same unit multiple times with an ability. And I think it's probably pretty clear that it would extend to a stratagem, but who knows? Maybe it doesn't. The next thing is ignoring modifiers. Now this is key for the Arcadian Command Squad, I believe, with their banner, which says if you have the banner, you can ignore all modifiers to the unit. So you can give a 20-man squad of Cadians with a Castellan and a banner, and they can be pretty good because they'll just ignore anything that your opponent has. So I know some people, mostly people playing against Guard, argued that doesn't affect your weapon skill, it doesn't affect your ballistic skill. This very clearly says it does do that, and that's good because once again it just gives Guard a bit more versatility with their command squad. Next one is Hazardous. Now this is pretty key for the Deathcore Krieg infantry squads. Because Deathcore Krieg infantry squads, you run 2 plasmas, you run 2 sergeants with plasma pistols, you might run a marshal with a plasma pistol, you might run a psycho with a hazardous psychic weapon. So this change is very good because the idea behind the Deathcore Krieg squads is you hazardous your plasma gunners first, and then you actually hope to roll the 1 because then they die, and then you get the +1 ballistic skill on every other weapon in the unit. And you don't really want to be failing those hazardous tests with your sergeants because they can't be brought back with the medic. You definitely don't want your marshal to die, or even your psyker. But now you can roll the hazardous test on your marshal or your psyker and have them kill one of your plasma gunners. So it just gives you even more chances to kill a plasma gunner. So that's why this change is pretty good for Deathcore Krieg. And obviously then, at the next time you can reinforce, or next time you can use the medic, you can just bring that plasma gunner back. So it doesn't actually, it's not really, there's no downside to doing it. Other than, I guess, getting shot off the table. But whatever. Next one, redeploy. So this is for Lord Solar Leontis. I never really ran into it, but, some people were arguing that you couldn't redeploy an infiltrated unit or whatever with Lord Solar, and this just says you can do that. And that's pretty good. And I think that's pretty much all the changes for the Guard that's specific to the Guard. Like I said, there are other changes that do affect the Guard, but I'm just kind of talking about how these specifically affect the Guard. If you want to go back through and, read the rules yourself and see all the other changes, you can do so, but I'm not going to be talking about all of it so far, just Guard specific. So thanks for watching the video. Hope you get some good wins now, and I'll see you next time.